Apologies for absence.
None formally sent.
None received. Declarations of interest. There's kind of one from me on the town hall rules and regs because I'm part of the Fringe, obviously.
And the same will apply to me because I'm secretary of the Operatic Society.
And I don't know whether because of if we're on the Christmas festival, I'm not sure where I stand.
I declare no interest in it.
I didn't say I'd interested in it.
John, I don't think that's technically an interest because you don't pay for anything.
Well,
So it'd be really
better to declare it rather than not. So
I've just realised
I do have some totally unbiased views on it actually. But anyway, we'll deal with those when we come to them. The minutes from the last meeting. I must admit, I nearly finished reading them.
Chair's announcements.
Yeah.
Paul, are you going to mention the bandstand?
Oh, sorry.
Bid?
Oh, sorry. Yes, I missed that little bit out. Yeah. We put a bid in from the Fringe on behalf of the Fringe for the bandstand. There's some improvements at the bandstand. Basically, to build like an amphitheatre seating area and to put a power socket there so that we wouldn't need a generator or anybody using it wouldn't need a generator. We put it in on behalf of the Fringe because council was going into recess and we wouldn't have had time to do it through the council. We've been successful in as much as they've approved the socket, the electrical works, but they haven't approved the seating. So we might have to get a chain gang around there and do some sort of deal with Denbighshire to get the seating sorted. But at least we can have some power there, which means no generator needed. They can have lights. So if the band wanted to do a concert over Christmas, next Christmas now, obviously, they can plug some lighting in there. Go ahead now.
How much power would there be, Ked?
Only 16 amps. So a standard blue 16 amp socket, like you see on a caravan.
But that would be substantially more than any generators that you're likely to wheel out. So
exactly, yes. It's enough for lighting, LED lighting, and a small PA system.
Oh, great. Well done.
Yeah, and that will be controlled for safety, obviously. It'll be controlled from the ice cream hut, we think, so that if there's nothing on, nobody can just go there and plug a heater in and sit in the bandstand heating themselves.
All right.
It's easier to do that than put a lockbox on it.
And any payment could go through them as well, couldn't it?
Exactly right, yes. But Denbighshire are going to call a meeting with us as soon as they see fit, really. Probably be in the new year now.
Yeah.
About the seating, I'll email or I'll have a chat with you about that at some point because I've got some alternatives.
Oh, fantastic. So, sorry, yeah, so going back to the minutes, the only thing that I can pick up on those is that it was resolved that the Asset Management Committee reaffirms the process of an annual coordinating meeting plan. Oh, hang on, no, sorry, not that, but the Remembrance Sunday working group, that went totally wrong for some reason. And I'd like to know why it went wrong.
Because I only ever attended one meeting, which was like a rubber stamp job.
Yes.
And that was, to be fair, no offence to Charlie, because I see you there now. It was
hi, Charlie.
Bit of a debacle, really, because you think after all this time that the Remembrance Day would be, set in stone.
Yeah.
A follows B follows A, C follows B, blah, blah. Anyway.
Yeah. And the fact that we were asked to be a part of it and then we were left out, which just seems strange to me.
It's not that we were asked to be part of it. We organised it.
I see. Okay.
So it's a town council.
Well, we didn't then.
So the fact that
the original
met.
Charlie sent. Can I just say, Charlie did send an invitation out to which nobody replied. Well, the Legion couldn't make it. By which time then things had moved on. So then we had the second meeting. So there was a meeting set up, but nobody could attend. So, and as it says in the terms, it was to, it's not to plan the event, it's just to make sure, I mean, really, it was there to say that it was acceptable to go forward, given the roadworks that were going on.
Yeah.
Right. I appreciate this isn't an agenda item now.
No, but you know, every effort was made to have a meeting, but nobody could turn up. So,
right, but somehow people did get together at it. Now, my question is going to be: do the town hall need to get involved in the organisation of it? Well, sorry, the town council.
yes, because it's our event. It's always been our event. We invite the Legion to work with us. A letter goes out every year telling them when we're putting on our event, and we invite the Legion to join in fact, and all the other Royal Naval Association. Everybody gets a letter. RAFA, Royal British Legion, Royal Navy, the Vicar. Standard letter goes out every year saying this is well, the date is fixed, isn't it? We got a choice on the date or the timings, and you know, it's just a matter of making sure everything is ready for the day. I must say, the Legion changed things back to before the clock, which is a little bit annoying, but they're adamant that's how it should be. But it does then cause those very lengthy pauses while we're waiting for certain, you know, the clock to chime and things like that. Clearly,
well, if we're true organisers of it, then perhaps we should have a rehearsal so that we can get the timings right.
Well, as I said, they are adamant they've got the timings right, but every year something goes wrong. You know, and I think the problem is they don't synchronise their watches with the town hall clock at 10 o'clock when they muster. So that is an issue. It's difficult for the band because obviously there were issues this year as well, as you know, for the period after the you know, we didn't have Rheoli, which wouldn't have been appropriate anyway. But there are certain things again we need to talk to them about. You know, if they're gonna parade, get there. You know, they should be on time, and they were early again. That's the problem. And then it was very difficult because you got I've forgotten his name.
Paul
was supposed to be in charge of timings. You couldn't quite see what he was doing. So there are lessons to be learned, but you know, whether we can have a rehearsal with Paul. We can walk around with Paul.
Yeah.
And one day, one year we got them nearly spot on when
that was good.
What's her name was in charge of the band, and everything worked swimmingly. And I'm sure after the event, you know.
Well, in that meeting that we did go to in the chamber with Paul, I did suggest to Paul that I walk around with a stopwatch by the side of him to time everything for next year, and he dismissed that, saying, "No, we know exactly the timings. Don't worry about it."
Exactly. Yeah. But I think some of them walk a bit faster.
Well,
I mean, what would be useful, which obviously we couldn't have because the band is diminished in its size. What would be useful, it'd be like a drum, you know, a drum band or a drum corps to actually pace, because then they would be out a step of the band and everything. But we can sort that out by next year.
Yeah, great.
Yeah, and I just remind you that we actually set up this by the asset management on the 12th of February in 2019. So it's not something that's new, it's something that's ongoing and it hasn't been rescinded. So we organise it and they come to it.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I mean, they organise the length of the length. We let them do that. That's up to them. But we organise the Sunday.
Yeah, thanks. John? Hiya.
Could we have someone at the head of the parade that controls the timings and controls the speed of walking, that we rehearse beforehand? Someone tame that we trust.
Yeah, I think that's what Gad was saying about the band leading it normally.
Yeah, but if we haven't got something like the band, could we have someone? Someone that could do that.
Well, the parade commander is Paul now. It used to be.
Okay, so we're sort of stuffed then.
And Paul is adamant that he's timed it, but I don't know. It's,
okay,
the whole point of the meeting to do with Remembrance Sunday is to organise this sort of thing. So, okay, we're learning the lessons now, but these need to be sorted for the meeting for 2022.
They do. If we have a meeting early enough next year,
Exactly.
then we can iron out all the problems we've had this year.
It's like I said, the problem arises due to the fact we've got a clock right next door to the War Memorial. If we didn't have a clock, it wouldn't be a problem because you're waiting for the chime of the clock. That's why we last year before we moved it till after last post was at the striking of the 11th hour.
Yeah.
Then you take all those timing issues out because you can just stand. You're not trying to guess. But they seem to slip it back for some reason this year.
There's a very simple solution that stopped the clock from chiming.
Yeah. Oh no, I think we'll just go back to, as we said, if it's good enough for the Queen to come out before, or when she's fit, to come out and just stand just before 11, and then the other last post after the clock, then it's good enough for Llangollen. But we'll just insist on that next year.
Sorry, Mel. Last words. Oh, sorry, Mel.
Can I suggest that we have a meeting in September next year?
Perfect.
Yeah. We'll have one.
John?
Just a very quickie, as we're on the subject of remembrance, what's happening about the Legion wreaths this year? I presume they're picking them up and storing them somewhere, are they?
What we've decided in the past was they stay till the 31st of December.
Mm.
So that's, I think even though I use garden wire this year, the plastic is so flimsy. I think Storm Arwen got rid of quite a few for us, and I don't know where they've gone. So we'll take them all down on the 31st. Because the idea is that is this year's celebration. They shouldn't be hanging around for next year. So all the poppies on the mound and all the wreaths will just be, unfortunately, they've got to be binned because they're not recyclable, which is another issue. So
the metal poppies, though,
the metal poppies go into store. Yeah, they go into
ours, so they get dusted off and sprayed down with WD, presumably.
Yeah, not quite.
Candle wax. So anyway, back to the minutes. Has anybody got any issues with the minutes from the last meeting?
I propose a minutes to.
And I'd like to second that.
Lovely, thank you. Right, reports. The first one, the Town Hall online.
Well, similar to what you just reported, I spotted that grant application or that potential money, which I found a very complex. Well, first of all, I couldn't understand what they were actually going to support when you read everything, because they didn't seem to want to support anything. So when I made a tentative inquiry, they said, no, we weren't eligible. But then I was contacted and told, yes, please apply. So I did. And on the basis of that, we've been successful in having £4,900 awarded towards upgrading the network throughout the town hall, really. I based it on, I think having a second bite allowed me to look at other places. So I took a lot of information about the use of hybrid versions from other theatres, and the fact that you can use it to expand your market. It's there for potential, say, elderly or disabled that couldn't come to the venue who could view it online. Also very much for parents with childcare who can't come for an evening performance could view it online and things like that. So I did quite a comprehensive package. So what it in essence what it's going to allow us to do is get a more structured system in the reception area now, and then from that with a backup, electrical, whatever, I don't know the technology in there somewhere, uninterrupted power supplies and all that, because we've got the wire to property now, so we've got up to 100 meg at times, if not more on certain times.
Yeah.
But unfortunately the signal fails quite dramatically as we go upstairs, even with a sender under the stairs. And Julie Thomas is using that now to have so she's already moved into hybrid, and she's having a Zoom version of her Zumba classes. So she's not only got the class up there, but she's got a Zoom audience as well.
Yeah.
So it's moving that way, and in essence, this will just allow us to install that. as I said, when I say office, I mean upstairs offices, really. The chamber, because obviously, again, there's a significant drop to the chamber, even with the new system, because of the thickness of the walls. So stage, main hall, and up to the lighting box. And then the idea of the lighting box is that hopefully then we could start with the increased bandwidth. We can start doing things like Glyndebourne, you know, and Royal Shakespeare, where Bob Lube in the past had investigated that, and you just pay 50% of any cost. So if you have 10 people attending, you just, for a tenner, you just give them 50 quid. If you get 1,000, they get 500. So that would be a direct income source that we could do to the town hall rather than using third parties as well. As it's IT, as I said, the advantage is, because it'd be nice to get it done while our £1,000 is still available. Works all right under financial regs. Obviously, there's the tender requirements, but there is no need to apply for contracts which relate to electricity, gas, water, sewage, and telephone services. So we can just go to our select list contractors on this and invite them to get the works done. So the first thing we're going to do is allow me to sign the grant offer, and then secondly, commission the works as soon as possible. What I'm hoping is that if we can get it done a bit cheaper, we may be able to buy some of the kit we also need to start hybrid meetings, so we could get back into the chamber. So if we can see how much we can get this year, and then that would reduce the demand next year if we got anything. But I'm not sure how much we can achieve, but if we can, we'll get as much equipment anyway from any residual, so we won't underspend on it, Chairman.
Right. Well, the first thing I see from that 4,900 and the costs involved is that when we set the task and finish group up, I sent round and got James and Ollie involved, and their total quote was about under 5,000 for everything, including the repeaters and the cabinet. Yeah. So that extra £1,000 shouldn't be needed at all.
It shouldn't be needed, but I'm saying if we can get the cameras, IT system to get the hybrid meetings going. I went to what you call it? Where did I go? Bay of Conwy Town Council for a SLCC meeting last week. They've got it a system running off the top of a projector, which was okay, except the sound coming in was like you was like watching a cinema. It was oppressively loud, and the only way they could do it was by putting a microphone on their existing, like the microphones in a county. So it's, there's lots of Heath Robertson things going on, but hopefully, Kenmare would have got a system in apparently, so it'd be worth going to look at theirs and then see how we can work from that. So whatever we can get for the money, we will get this year.
I have spoken to Orb about that as well, and the simplest situation is where we have the projector on that side wall, we'd have a camera up there so that anybody logging in can see all the councillors as one from that position. And then we have a central mic so that everybody in the council meeting can be heard by everybody. And if anybody wants to speak, then they phone in.
Well, as I said, there are systems where you do. I mean, it's Teams basically. You'd have Teams, and Teams would be projected, and the picture of me would be a picture of the chamber. Yeah,
that's it. So, exactly.
Yeah. This is the detail on how we spend the money. We've just got to accept the money first, though.
Yes. But the second recommendation.
Oh yeah.
Right. Should we, on the recommendations, the town clerk signs the grant offer letter. Can we have a vote on that proposal?
Well, I propose a recommendation then.
Yeah. And a seconder, John.
Yeah.
The works to be expedited. Is it worth going to somebody like the IT people that you mentioned, the ICT, is it? Contractor.
Yeah. And
to Orb and just get a quote off both of them so we know we're in the ballpark?
Well, we could speak to Orb, but they're not on our select list as an ICC contractor. They're on as an audio visual, not necessarily ICT. So. But
they have done ICT works there.
Well, they haven't for me.
Didn't they just do all the patchwork in the office?
No.
I thought James and Ollie did that.
No. They've done nowhere, as far as I'm aware, they've done no. Well, they've not been authorised by me to do any works on the network. So if they say they have, they haven't.
then I suggest we get them authorised. Because
How
they're
do we
the
get
guys
them
we want in.
authorised?
They know the IT throughout the town hall, inside out.
Well, I'm not sure if they do, with the greatest respect, because they don't manage it.
No, but sorry. Basically, it's a small office, but because the IT has got to be linked in with the sound and lighting equipment. Otherwise, we're going to get clashes everywhere, and we don't want that.
Well, okay, we can ask them, but they're not on our select list, as they'll have to, you
No,
know.
that's what I'm saying. Can
How
we
do we
get
put
them
them
on
on the
our select
select list?
Sorry.
How do we put them on the select list?
Well, they have to apply, but as I say, they're on as audiovisual specialists, not ITC.
Okay, they need to apply then, don't they?
Yeah. Okay.
So, have we got a proposal for the part 41B then?
Well,
Yeah.
if they can send the relevant, you know, information we need to ensure they've got the relevant qualifications to do it, then yeah.
Yeah.
And then we'd have to put them on the list.
Yeah. They're well qualified. They do schools, they do theatres, they do all sorts.
So we
offices.
were saying about having a quote from both of from them and the other ICT then.
Yeah.
Yeah. And can I just say, well done, Gareth, for
Yeah,
finding the
that's
plan.
a great. Yeah, sorry, Gareth. Yeah, that is
I
brilliant.
agree.
Not being patronising, Gareth, just saying good
No,
job.
no.
No, I think it was a good spot, Gareth.
Well, you know, it was,
Yeah,
yeah.
definitely.
Okay, so we're not going to go, and so we're going to go back to quote. What you're saying is you don't want to use the powers under the regs to allow us to go to a telephony. You want us to go to quotations.
I'd at least get at least two prices in.
Well, the only problem is with that is that we're then tied in with effectively a tender system, aren't we?
Yeah.
Don't need.
Well, I don't know.
We're talking informal indications, aren't we?
Well, we can ask them to quote. We can ask them to quote, which isn't like a formal tender, but it just means 3.6 is negated. You're asking for two quotes from local suppliers, our existing ICT and our existing audiovisual suppliers.
Yeah, it's like I want a ream of paper. Do you go to Wrexham Paper or Viking Direct? You go to see what you can get a price off both before you buy.
Yeah.
I don't see that there's a conflict here because if the people that you're talking about can be approved as an ITC contractor, then you would normally consult whoever's on your list. Is it? Who is it? Have we only got one on the list at the moment?
Yeah, we got ACS Technology is our ICT, as I say. But the thing is, if you have two on the list, we'll have to ask them for quote anyway, wouldn't we? So we might just ask them to quote. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's fair.
I think it keeps them on their toes.
Of course.
Yeah. Yeah. Bang on.
Excellent. So do you have a proposal for that then?
Yeah, me.
And a second. John Palmer. Thank you.
Okay, I'll agree. Yeah.
Yeah, lovely.
Second one is second report is Cambridge. Finally got obviously delayed a bit because of my desire to end up in hospital on a few occasions the last few months. Went out to quite a number of companies, as you can see, including Ramboll, who were our original engineering contractors, who surprisingly didn't quote. As you can see, there's quite a big gap between the two that did, Sanders and Watt Wigan and Engineering Consultancy Derby. But having looked at the pricing and the fact that we'd estimated about £3,000 in the asset management plan, remember a while back for this works, then clearly Sanders and Watt's covered within that. And the recommendation is that we employ them to do the consultancy work for the Cambridge.
Yeah, can I just ask though why you've put down engineering consultancy services twice as the recommendations?
It's a pity you hadn't checked your documentation before you sent it out to us, because you've recommended the others. You've recommended the more expensive ones.
Oh, sorry, yeah. Sorry, should be Sanderson 1.
Yeah, that's okay then.
Yeah, in 3.2 and 4.1.
That's
So on the
okay.
basis of that,
Do we have any recommendations of their work? Any
Well, they've all come with their usual, who the people are and a resume of everything they've done. I mean, Engineering Consultancy Service Derby, a really big company, do a lot of bridges for the railway. The Wigan one, bit closer, bit local, more local, and actually asked if they could do some engineering works for us. That's how I got that one. So based on what I've seen, I think any of them would be more than competent to do the work. It's inspection.
It's an inspection at the moment, isn't it?
So how do we change this, Gareth? You know,
Well, it's an error. It's an error. So you have to agree with the most cost effective. So the most cost effective is Sanderson Watts Associated Wiggers, yeah.
The proposition is that Sanderson Watts are awarded the work, and not as recommended by the town clerk in his typographical errors. I propose Sanderson Watts.
It would have been handy if you'd have reminded me before when you got the agendas last week. We could have amended it.
The problem in the past, Gareth, is when we've done that sort of thing, your response is normally, well, that's the sort of thing you sort out at the meeting. So,
well, yeah, but if it was done when you immediately got it, we could have changed it by last Thursday, couldn't we? And then it would still be acceptable. But that's fine.
I must admit, Gareth, I haven't looked at this until today. I've been too busy with work, so.
Okay.
The problem, it isn't a problem. It's a problem.
Well, I propose that having changed the name to Sanderson Watts, we go ahead and do it.
Okay, thank you.
Cool.
As you can see, I'm in a hurry to finish tonight.
yeah, thank you, Melvin.
All right then. I'll begin to doubt myself whether I've got the figures in the right way around, but I will get back to you if there's an error. I may have put the wrong one.
It's the cheaper one.
Yeah, the cheaper one we will go for.
Yeah.
Okay. As you want to move on. Yeah, if you recall, we've done this arrangement with Derwent for a number of years now.
Yeah.
It started off at the beginning of the last council really, and we had not only the arrangement with the planting, but we also used to have a young girl that came in every Wednesday and helped in the office. So they get this face-to-face work experience, which is very useful for the individuals at the college. As I said, we've had comments from the college itself of the value that they see for their students as to work experience. As I say, particularly enjoy coming into town when they could. They were really disappointed last year, obviously, but the comments they get from people, and those students that actually help grow those plants from seed all the way through to the planting. The planting itself is always appreciated by locals, and it's nearly always of a high standard. What's let it down in the past, as some of our planting pots when the wicks were blocked, but we resolved that. So basically, there's no reason why we were disappointed with any of the products they provided. They are I wouldn't say substantially cheaper, but they are cheaper than going to Plantscape or some other nursery types for the costs, and it was summer and winter planting. So I think again they're keen to continue. We need to let them know in good time, because they've got a plan, I say, in the spring now to start the planting, and that's why I brought it forward prior to Christmas. So the proposal is that we give another contract really, or enter another partnership for 3 years until from April 2022. Yes. I wouldn't do the whole term just in case something changes, just to give us a bit more flexibility, Chen.
April 22, are you talking April 22?
From April, 1st of April 2022 for 3 years.
Yeah.
So for next year.
It's great. I love the comments they've made. It's fantastic. The only thing that it doesn't mention is a cost at all. No,
it's around about £2,000 for the main planting, and then about 800 at winter. Which, if you compare to some of the bigger boys, it's probably half the cost.
But
And
we've dealt with them long enough to trust them that they're not likely to throw £3,000 at us at Christmas or something. No.
and I mean, Charlie knows. Ironically, it's a good name, Mr. Paul Moss, who's in charge of them, and you know, he's helped us on other things, you know, as well, because it's a partnership. It's not, you know.
No, I appreciate that. It's a brilliant thing actually to work hand in hand with any educational system.
Yeah. So if you're happy to continue, then that would be fine.
Yeah, a proposer for that. Yeah, thank you, John. And a seconder.
Yeah.
Thank you, John. Brilliant.
Christmas illuminations, as you know, we had a bit of a set to, but one of the positive things that's come out of it really is that Blash Air have delivered the temporary ones for this year, which are up. All bar around the town hall, which we just physically couldn't put up because of all the roadworks. It was just impossible. And of course, the lights on the bridge are not up because we haven't got a catenary wire anymore.
Actually, guys, just while you're on that, you know, we're supposed to take the catenary wires down.
Yeah.
There's one being left up between D Cafe and the shop bar. There's a catenary on that one.
I'll have a look there. And
I only noticed it today. Sorry.
yeah.
It only needs a ladder.
Yeah.
Just to remind Councillor Keddy, the reason that one was installed was the tension between the lampposts with the existing catenary wire that crossed the bridge meant that it was bending, so it was a brace against that.
Yeah.
So it may not, with the new improved lamppost, it may not be needed.
Yeah.
We'll use it for something else.
Yeah. Yeah. So as I said, that means they've delivered the cross streets this year, and we'll be picking them up and taking them back. So that gives the opportunity to see if they could refurbish the stock we've got at the moment. They have that style still in stock. I've spoken to them, and obviously they wouldn't do it if it's going to be excessively expensive. So the idea is, in the first instance, we'll get them returned to see whether we could have ours refurbished, whether it's economically viable, before we make a decision as to what we're going to do. If we get them done at a reasonable cost, then you know, they will go back up. Obviously, we can get them done, put them back up, and then continue with a separate arrangement, which is with the arrangement we always have, which is owning our lights and getting a contractor to put them up. Since even before I got here, they were being bought in and put up by ourselves. We've never had them put them up by the other contractors. So it's just to, as I say, get the authority to just get them checked over before we decide to dispose of them and get brand new ones.
Yeah, Mel, I'll come to you in a second. Charlie, you had your hand up.
You're muted, Charlie. Press space bar.
That's much better like this.
Press your
Evil Mel.
Hang on, let me see. It might be my fault.
If you press your space bar, you can speak while it's depressed.
Charlie, you're still muted. You know, on your keyboard, the space bar at the bottom, press that. Worked all right this afternoon on a test.
Can you mime it? Can you mime it, Charlie?
Yeah.
What's
Perhaps you can send it in as a chat item, Charlie.
Top right hand corner, the microphone at the top, you've got a line through it.
Okay, can you hear me now? Mark?
Yes.
Right.
Sorry, just the fixed
Yeah.
ones on the end of Market Street and Shan's, the flat above, they're going to need looking at for next year because some of the bricks coming out are not very secure, really. So we just need to make sure it's on the list before we put the lights up next time.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
The ones that we have on hire, by the way, only 3 of the 4 are working.
Yeah.
No, they're all working now. I went out yesterday. It tripped during Arwen. I went with a screwdriver and fuse. I thought the fuse may have gone, but it just tripped. So it's back on yesterday.
And
Mel.
there's a lot of.
Oh, sorry, John. Sorry,
John,
John's still speaking. Mel, sorry, Mel. John's still speaking.
Well, as far as renting these things and hiring them in are concerned, I mean, how much more? How much more does it cost, Gareth, to actually just rent them in and have no worries about them breaking, being stored badly, water dripping on them, messing them all up? What is the actual difference in price? And presumably they actually erect them as well, do they?
No, that's the thing. We've never gone for one company install and deliver and install. We've always had a separate contractor to install. Hiring in, I mean, those which are quite, they're a bit smaller than expected, I must admit, but we've got lights up. I mean, we're talking £1,000 there, so you could at least double that for the others. So you're talking £2,000 a year, and then you've got to go into a 3-year hire contract. So it'd be at least 2,000, I would have thought. I mean, yes, there are the benefits. They come and take them away and bring them back and they're working. But as I've just pointed out, a lot of it is to do with how we've got it wired up. A lot of the connections are a bit Heath Robinson, to be perfectly honest. I mean, just to explain, there's a commander socket at the top of the lighted columns, and basically a cable that runs down the column with an ordinary 13-amp plug that goes into a socket. So there's so many places that, and those have been, as Charlie correctly says, we've not only got to look at the wires, which should be tested regularly with a stress test to see if they can hold the stuff. But I would imagine by now it might be very useful to do a lot of rewiring, redo a lot of the cabling, because I think a lot of the faults are to do with the actual age of the cabling. So,
I've got a note to that at the end. Sian?
I think the ones that we own, I know they're not working, put on a way better display than the ones that we've hired this year. And if we were to hire some more impressive ones, I think the cost would probably spiral even more.
Yeah.
I mean, these ones that we've got at the moment, they look like there should be something hanging from the middle. They just only look like half a decoration.
Yeah.
As Gareth said, he thought they were a bit disappointing. So, yeah.
Councillor Haddy.
We went into this in great detail at the time, and it was very much more cost effective for us to own the stuff that we'd previously hired than it was to continue to hire it, which is the reason why we did it. The only surprise is, of course, that what we really need to do is ascertain when we take it down that it's fit for purpose for next year, rather than discover it the week of the contractor arriving to stick it up. And that shouldn't be that difficult to do. So once the refurb costs, the main cost in these things is not so much the LEDs and the electronics. I would suspect it's the carriage frame and all the rest of it that goes with it. So, I mean, the price of LEDs has been coming down dramatically since we started hiring and then purchasing this lot. So apart from a rip-off Blanchard refurb, it would surprise me if it wasn't cost effective to refurb what we've got.
Okay.
I quite agree. One of my notes there was we'll get a local electrician to test, inspect and quote for replacing the lights on the existing frameworks. Because I had to look in the garage and there's nothing to them, basically.
No.
John, Councillor Palmer.
I'm not clear whether we're going to be looking at the whole structure of the wiring to them. Gareth intimated that that's the biggest problem and that needs to be sorted out, presumably, early on.
Yes, I quite agree. It should be inspected and tested because it's a temporary, under the regulations, it's classed as a temporary installation. So, i.e. a building site. So they should be tested and inspected before any lights are erected anyway, by any contractor who takes it on. If they haven't been, then the contractor has failed.
I just, as I say, I think they're tested when they go up and they work. And obviously when they come down, they work. But I don't know.
No, I'm on about the integrity of the supply to them.
Oh, yeah.
I know on the corner of Market Street, there's chocolate block connectors in midair.
Yeah.
That is not safe. That is the danger.
So that the Market Street one is the worst, and that's why I say we did get Mega Electrics to sort that out a couple of years back.
Still there.
And it was even worse. So so there are areas we know we've got to get. I mean, ideally, it'd be lovely to have a one wire that goes around them all and one switch at the switch on, but that's going to be practically impossible. So there are things, and I know the budget, when you get to the budget next week, we put some more money into to cover those other elements like the catenary wire testing, and it would be nice to replace all the electrics if we could, because the new cabling and everything, and then we know it's safe for a good few years then.
Yeah, Councillor Haddy.
The actual catenary wire should be okay. It's the fixings we're talking about.
Yeah.
Into the buildings, because we replaced them about 7 or 8 years ago.
Yeah.
And they're stainless steel.
Yeah.
Fittings, so they should be okay. Now talking about budget, is that, did we have an input into the budget for this year?
I haven't seen anything. No.
I mean, it's because we haven't had, again, it's my illness which has delayed everything. So you will get a full report next week. Well, you've had it already with the budget working paper, and that's the time to go into it. Obviously, there's certain, elements.
This is the sort of thing that would have been an input into the budgetary requirements, wouldn't it?
Yeah, but as I say, you'll notice the in view of this discussion, which there is allowance for the Christmas decorations, quite a big allowance gone in. But on the other hand, we got to recognise, I said I don't want to get into the budget discussions, but we're also trying to keep the costs lower for the similar for the ratepayers, so it's a bit of a balance really. But hopefully, as Councillor Hadley says, we can get some more life out of what we've got.
Yeah.
One of the orbs was refurbished last year, or the year before, so that's still good to go.
And the other thing is we need to look at Nadolig Llawen, and instead of suspending it mid-street as we did when it went up, it's a one-way sign. It needs to be against the building, because otherwise you're reading it in reverse as you're coming down.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. I mean, obviously we didn't, that was bought for us.
Wrong position.
That was bought for us out of contributions, and half of it's failed anyway, so that's not gone back down.
It's repairable, and it must be quite simple because it's fairly new, isn't it?
Yeah.
There seems to be quite a few ways of raising funds for this. I know Charlie put a lot of effort into raising funds for the Christmas lights many years ago. Charlie, didn't you? And much appreciated. I know I wasn't involved with the council then, but I did. We did support it. So that's something. I'm not saying something similar could happen, but something like that. On the electrical side of things, for those of you who don't know, I am an electrical engineer. I'm quite willing to donate my services free of charge to do any inspection and testing and quoting for the repair of any lights, and likewise for any of the lighting columns and the work needed to get a decent quote in for control. Coming back to the one switch, it is possible with radio tele switches. So you have one switch and you just have a radio receiver in each column.
Yeah,
so all come on together. So nothing's impossible there.
No, that's fine.
Charlie.
If Sean says yes, we'll volunteer to wear Christmas jumpers in August and fundraise.
Sorry?
John's not smiling.
It looks like work for Sean.
I really think, sorry, whilst it's getting this money is great, they always expect a new light. What we need really is just money to get what we've got working well.
We could give them multicoloured LEDs.
Yeah, it's not as sexy then, is it? If you say, well, it's just to pay for what we've already got. That is the problem. So that's why you end up with more and more lights every year and more and more hassle.
Meliano.
Is the Nadolig Llawen sign going back to Blanchard's to be repaired, Gareth?
It's not Blanchard. It was it was bought by. It was bought out of the money, so it's a different company. But that's the one that said the guarantee was 2 years. But what they mean is 2 switch-ons. So I've already tried to get them to repair it on the guarantee. But if Paul is willing to have a look at it, I'm sure it's only something in the connection box. Really, I don't think the lights have failed. It's got to be something with the connections. it's, and if we can, you know, we did try and get somebody a bit earlier, but couldn't get hold of anybody to come and check it.
Or a simple
But
fault.
we physically couldn't put it up because of the roadwork, so that helped in some respects. You know, we couldn't put the cherry picker and stop the traffic in the middle of the street, so it was impossible.
It would look nice against the town hall.
Yeah, I was just going to say, yeah, well done, John. That's really the best place for it, wouldn't it?
Well, Joe, just
What about where the notice board is?
Try and find the notice board.
It might. Well, the other one I was thinking was on the wall off Sean's wall, should we say, above the St Edward Square.
Yeah.
Yes.
Councillor Palmer.
Do we need to amend the recommendations?
We do. I was just about to do that, actually.
Well, no, this recommendation is just about the refurbishment of the lights. We'll consider in the new year, or we've got, you know, I'll bring a report back on what's needed to be done. That's separate. This is
further action to this report.
No, this is just to illuminate, to get this process of agreeing that we send them to La Share in the first instance.
Yeah, great.
Okay.
Excellent. For the final one, this should be quite quick. I say it should be quite quick. The town hall hire.
Yeah, it's just again, obviously we've had issues, as you know, because of certain things, COVID.
Actually, Gareth, can I just stop you for a second? Because the first thing, as I say, I started reading it today. We need to redo this totally. The three reasons I got down here. The document's incorrect because you say that you highlight or outline changes in red. Well, there are 4 changes made before the red writing starts, and then the first red writing you come across isn't actually a change. So I don't know what changes have been made without reading it word for word against the last document.
Well, they are changes. If they're red, they're changes. If they're not. Well, they are. If there's line through it, they're not.
But the first red writing you read, it reads exactly the same as the previous document.
Which one's that? Sorry, the
first red writing 3 point something, is it?
3.3, the capacity.
Yeah.
That's because we've had from experience with Sean and the 20 Club. It's something we didn't, because I think that can be changed, but we haven't.
But that's the first red writing, and it doesn't. It's exactly the same. Sorry, John. Councillor Haddy.
Right. Well, as the clerk's just said about 3.3, and is reiterated in 9.2, those levels are those figures are actually incorrect. We've been through this argument before, and at length, if you remember, back in March of 2016, because we went through an exercise under the HSE Fire Safety Risk Assessment for the small and medium places of assembly, which is what governs the fire safety in this hall, and we worked out both in reality, because we had the hall set out, the actual practical level of which seating could be achieved, and the theoretical maximum in the hall. And if you remember that, if you refer back to the actual meeting that we did it may seem odd that we have a theoretical maximum capacity of the building, because it is important, because it doesn't. If we worked on that, it was 240 seated and 100 upstairs on the balcony, which gave a theoretical maximum in the building of 340. Now you can't seat 240 downstairs. You could if you could get them in, but we haven't got that many chairs for a start. But the problem is that you have reintroduced, this includes staff, volunteers, supervisors, cast performers, catering, etc. Now the problem is that you are deducting on some events quite a substantial number of people, which makes the seating capacity uneconomic. And the reason we wanted the theoretical maximum in the building and carried out the fire safety risk assessment was so that we knew exactly what the maximum capacity was. So in a seated performance of 340 total for the building volume, then you would, in most places, have a capacity of extra 100 or so people, which is beyond what you ever would get, that you could use for your people backstage and so forth. It doesn't come to that. But the problem is, once you say include staff, volunteers, cast performers, etc., you're wrong, because we discussed this at various lengths in the past. And the initial calculation that you made, Gareth, was based on building regulations, which in fact didn't apply. And you had discounted one of the fire exits, even under that, because it doesn't come under building regulations. It comes under the HSE Fire Safety Risk Assessment, which, as far as I know, is still extant because the construction of the hall hasn't changed.
Yeah, well, that's why it's in red, John. And the reason it's in red, because I wanted to ask Sian, really, when we had a good layout for the 20 club. And can you remind me how many actual seats we got in? Because I couldn't remember.
But you couldn't have had more than 96, because there aren't more than 96, I don't think.
Yes,
No.
there are. There were something like 100 and
There's about 140 of those chairs.
or something. I think I can't remember off the top of my head. I think we've done a count before, and there aren't 140 chairs. Where
No.
in theory you could have 140 chairs. You'd be quite tight if you did put out 140 chairs. I think there was something like 120 or something chairs, red chairs at the moment. So that would make like a 240 seated in the town hall, using the balcony for 100 and the 140 odd downstairs. But I mean, if you then I mean, things like the operatic, I mean, they'll have like 50 or on stage or something.
Yeah.
By the time they've got the orchestra and,
Yeah,
and things.
but
That's a significant amount out of.
Yeah,
That's the purpose of the maximum capacity of the hall.
That's why I'm saying it's in red, because we got a. I'm sorry, I should have put a line through it. We need to redefine the capacities based on the experience we had with that new layout.
No. Hang on a minute. No, there are two matters here. One is the practical capacity, because we don't have the physical number of chairs required.
Yeah.
And the theoretical capacity of the hall, and that's the important bit, particularly when it comes round to performers, staff, volunteers, and so forth. That's the problem we've always had in the past, particularly with your assessment until we carried out this risk assessment. Because if you start, we already worked out that if you have a bar, you're going to lose 32 seats. If you have an additional apron, that's another 16 gone, and same with the orchestra pit, and so on. These are set pieces, but the capacity of the hall is the important bit. When you really don't need include staff, volunteers, cast performers, catering, etc. That's where you run into the problem, and it's actually incorrect at that point.
Yeah, I totally agree, John. That's what I'm saying. 9.2. When we look at this, we need to delete the include staff, volunteers, and supervisors, because it's not relevant. Because the overall capacity is something phenomenal, as you know, that we could have in the building, and they're going to be using the exits the same as everybody else. So what I'm saying is it's in red at the moment, because when Sian, we got more chairs up with the blue ones and others and from downstairs. So I think we need to redefine. Charlie and I'll have to set it out. And when the 20 club, there's still plenty of space at the back for the bar, and nearly always everybody has a raffle table, don't they? So I think we need to hold back on when we come to approve this, put the figures in that we can physically, and then the other thing is purchase chairs to that number so they're the same red chairs, so we're not going to mix and match. So that's why that's in red, because there's still work to be done on that. But the volunteers shouldn't be in 9.2. Sorry, I should have put a line through the volunteers.
Yes.
And so with the maximum capacity,
and in 3.3.
yeah, and then that's the capacity really of how can I say it? Audience capacity, probably a better word.
Yes.
Yeah.
Can we
Okay.
have a get? Sorry, I'm interrupting a bit. Can we have a get together, probably of 20 Club Operatic? Charlie and
Shan,
Gareth.
can I just come back to that? Because I was going to suggest that. Shan, I was going to suggest that at the end, because I've only put out one point so far. The second point, the document itself needs updating, which is where we can all get together to do that. Because it needs rewording. It's very confusing. And we need it to be as simple as possible so that we encourage the use of the town hall, not drive people away where they need to get a solicitor to read it.
Well, it is a legal document and it's there to protect us and protect others. So
it is, but I can give you a very good example, Gareth. Patrons or guests, the definition is any person, representative or company who attends the event at the invitation of you or of the hirer, or any other person attending the event in whatever capacity. That just needs to read any person attending the event in whatever capacity. Doesn't need to have all that stuff in front of it. The document just needs updating to read clearer. Mr. Palmer.
A couple of things. 3.6 and 8.10. When we have something like the Christmas festival or the church fair or what used to be the market on a Friday, does this mean that the people organising it have to count people in and count people out to ensure that they don't exceed the maximum number of people in the hall at one time?
Well, yes, they should. Because if there was a fire and they'd exceeded the capacity, they would be liable. Not us.
Folks, I'm sorry, I'm going to have to go. I've said my apologies. I'm out of here. Cheerio.
No.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's why it's saying further on that, you are responsible for the, somewhere in it, access, whatever. They are responsible for ensuring the security of the building and everything. So they should be counting, like counting the number of people in with a clicker or something to ensure they're not exceeding the capacities. And at Christmas, I've had kittens up there when we've had people up there, ram-packed, and all the stalls in there, because exactly that is happening. We're exceeding the capacity.
Well, we need to know what the maximum is when it's stalls laid out as opposed to seats.
Yeah, that's not included, is it?
No. Again, going back, if we get together as an operative of a users group, if you like, and we all have a little say in it. Gareth, you pointed out the classic there. It does say somewhere else in it, somewhere about that. Let's have everything together so it makes clear reading and people can understand it.
Well, I disagree that you can't understand it, and I think you've got to be very careful with legal documents when you take things out. This is based, if you look at others, they're even more complicated than this. And they're obviously, custom and practice has made them this way, because if you end up going, to a legal position, you have to make it clear.
I totally understand, Gareth. I totally understand. But I think it's been added to, and it hasn't been done in a very good way.
The only way it's been added to is this year when we've incorporated the fire risk stuff in and not had a separate document. It's been the same terms and conditions for years.
Okay. John, sorry.
The other area that I'm not at all happy with, when you talk about booking over 12 months, and you won't take a booking in excess of 12 months. Well, that flies in the face of the arrangement that we entered into with the asset management group back in July of 2018, where we agreed to hold an annual booking meeting for the major events in the town hall. And the other problem that we ran into in the past, quite apart from the clash, is that on many occasions, if you're booking a license to hold an event or an act, you may be booking 12, 18 months, 2 years. In some cases, they'll practically book 3 years in advance.
Yep, definitely.
And the dates need to be known. So to restrict to 12 months maximum, it flies in the face of what's already currently.
We wouldn't be able to get some acts for that because it has to go in their contract.
the idea of the group was to meet annually to plan the next year. So that is 12
Well,
months.
the idea of the group was we should have met before the hall started taking bookings again, and that would have been the time to do it, wouldn't it?
What is the issue with booking
We're in
it?
flow at the moment.
What is the issue with booking it 3 years in advance?
Well, there is quite an issue really, because that's blocking out complete chunks of, you know, depends what you're doing. Do you want to maintain it for a select few big organisations in town to do block bookings with all the, and it's not just the weeks in advance, it's all the rehearsals and all the time taken and the weekends. When, you know, we're charging £45 for set building, when we could have a wedding in it making it £600 over 2 days. That's the dilemma. And
Okay, then, so basically, what you're doing is getting rid of your regular customers. I totally disagree with that.
You're not allowing it to, you know, your regular customers will make £6,000 a year. What you're saying is if you know, if we got a set building in because it's already booked 3 years in advance, you've got to say to anybody who's got a wedding on that day that we can't take a wedding.
Okay, but if you don't have the set building, you don't have the operatic going ahead.
Well, you know, it's entirely up to you. You're the members. You can decide how you want to run the town hall. You can either run it, you know, and subsidise it, or try and make money. And what you're doing is you're preventing myself and Charlie taking bookings for things because we've got to say, sorry, we can't take that booking, even though the income stream is probably 3 or 4 times more than we're getting on that day.
Okay.
Yeah, you're talking about a day. We're talking over the year. Or whatever.
Yeah, but you know that's
Councillor Palmer.
As we're talking about cost effectiveness, it would be useful as a group, because we're supposed to be in charge of this sort of conceptually, is the cost effective use of the hall for some of these smaller groups, and whether they should be using the main auditorium, because it may be that they're paying 15 quid and it's costing us £40 a heat the hall. But unless you provide the figures, we don't know. And it might be better that they're using the chamber and so on. So there's a whole range of things that we need to be discussing.
Councillor Palmer.
I think it's important to decide what we want to do. Do we want to make money out of it, or do some organisations like the Operatics, potentially like the 20 Club, provide a lot more for the townspeople in terms of its cultural and getting people together? And it may not make money, but it's a very important contribution to the activity of the town.
It would just make money.
Yeah, and I think part of the council's remit is to provide entertainment and welfare to the local people of Llangollen.
Sean.
Yeah. I was speaking with my 20 Club hat on. If we'd got something booked, you know, for a year in advance, and then Charlie or Gareth came to me and said, look, we've got the opportunity of a wedding, we would say, right, well, we'll work around it. You'd still have a half-built set, so you'd have to have the curtains across, but we would do our best to work around it, as we would do our best to work around the Julie Thomases, the Vowels, the everything. We try and be considerate to other users, and I think that's all we can do, because there's such a call on the time there that's all you can do. You know, it's not to be selfish about it, and it's in our interest for all of us to have extra income, to have the town hall still available for use. That sometimes giving up a day or a weekend and trying to work around it is better option, surely.
Yeah.
I mean, if weddings were booked in for every weekend, it would be a problem. But if it's just the occasional one, can we not work around it? As long as the wedding party knows what they're going to get.
We have, but you know, when they want to have a disco or an evening party, they don't really want the set around them. That's the thing. So I mean, it's a bigger debate than tonight. But you know, from my experience when I was working at Theatre Havren, people came in on the morning, built a set, and the performance runs 3 days, and it's gone at the end of the night. Now, the difference we have is sets are built over like 4 or 5 weeks in advance. Now, I accept it's a different organization, you know, the way it works. But if we want to maximise and allow the most use, we may have to say you cannot possibly build a set until, I don't know, 2 weeks in advance.
Okay, well, you've got to remember that these are all volunteer groups and volunteer groups, and they're not professional. So
And
the tickets are kept low, so they maximise their
week.
audiences. If they had to do things like that, say for the 20 club to get professional set builders in, they'd have to put the ticket price up. Then where would that leave them with revenue coming in?
I'm not saying they get professional set builders in. All I'm saying is if you have 10 days of set building instead of 10 weekends, it makes a big difference, doesn't it?
It does, but then again, we are volunteers.
Yeah, well,
it's made up of volunteers, isn't it?
This is the sort of thing
Who do it
that
in their
needs to be
spare
discussed
time?
in detail, isn't it? It's
yeah.
obvious that there is a conflict here, and it needs to be resolved.
Yeah.
But-
Can I suggest we have a separate meeting about this?
Yes. And at the same time, we'll look at the bookings for the next year and
Yeah.
perhaps the year after, if necessary.
John, sorry, go ahead, Thomas.
I just want to flag up the other thing about things like raffles. Very often, I mean, our raffle is a licensed raffle, but there's many times if you get some event going on, it's just like tickets, you know, and you get a strip for £1 or whatever. Would that then be go against what's in here in 10.2?
It probably does, John. Which is something that really the hirer should be.
We're not preventing it. We're just asking you to give us prior notice. That's all.
And also, if it all goes pear-shaped, it's down to you. Now, the operatic has a lottery's license.
Yeah.
It sounds like what Councillor Palmer's talking about. Whatever he's organising, it's about 16, 17 quid a year from memory. But
It's not for the town council to allow people to do things without the proper permissions. So very, very early on, it says you've got to comply with all necessary statutes.
And that's exactly what it should say there. And then it should be just, that's it, end. Don't mention anything more in the rest of the document, because it just adds to confusion.
As we're on the subject of raffle, one of my very hates is that the strip is withdrawn from the bag and they say 1 to 93, you know, 1 to 5 or whatever, which is in breach of the Lotteries Act, because unless you tear off ticket number 1 and put the others back in, when you purchase 5 tickets, you should have 5 equal chances of winning. But what you're actually doing is only giving 1 chance of winning.
Yes, very true. Very true.
Sounds like the lottery.
So a revised proposal on this is that we organise a meeting in the new year where user groups can get together, discuss the terms and conditions, and go from there.
I don't think user groups should discuss our terms and conditions. No. Sorry.
I think the asset management deal with it.
The agenda's been out a week, and tonight is where we should be discussing whether we accept them or not, and make amendments. So
Okay, then I can change the proposal. We don't accept them.
And that we meet to revise them.
Which is what we're going to do tonight.
No.
I mean, there seems to be a trend of reports going to committee and being deferred, and not considered.
I'm not surprised, Gareth, because this is a massive document that, as I say, as soon as I started reading it, it just befuddled me because it wasn't true to what the report said.
And it contains contentious material, which we don't.
Exactly. So there's nothing we can do with this document tonight to make it work in any way.
Well, if you'd have gone through it all week, you could have highlighted those areas you wanted amended. That's what I'm saying. And we could have done it tonight because this is where decisions are made. So what we're going to do is defer a decision again, go through it all as a group, and then have to bring it back to make a decision.
I'm going to suggest it's well, actually, no, Gareth, I think that is wrong, because your report says, where does it say? The changes are highlighted or outlined in red. Now, that is not true. The changes are not highlighted anyway. They're not outlined in anywhere. They're highlighted, but they're not changes that are highlighted. All the changes are not highlighted. We cannot do anything based on that because it's an incorrect document. And I'm going to stand by that because you're a stickler for the rules. And therefore, I think that document is invalid.
Well, the red ones are changes. The red with lines are the deletions. So if it's like 812 wouldn't have been there, and then it's a new 813. So it is what it says. The additions are in red, and if they're
no, Gareth, that's my point. They are not. The bit in red that you brushed aside as being, oh, that's for discussion, not because it reads exactly the same as the other document in red.
In which case, can I refer you back to 9.2 when it says the maximum capacity to the venue, and in brackets this includes staff, volunteers, supervisors, cast performers, catering, etc. And so on.
Yeah, to which I just said that I was hoping to get an input from Sian tonight to check on the capacities that we did for the 20 club, and we could have added them to that document tonight. So they are highlighted as changes there because we wanted to change it. All the others are all, you know. I mean, I can do it side by side for you if you want.
The problem that isn't the problem. The auditorium, 300 standing, 260 theatre style, 180 banquet. It should, I would have thought 240, but it's 240 seated rather than theatre. 260 is fine because that isn't really a change from before. But what is a change is that this includes staff, volunteers, supervisors, class performers, etc. Because it doesn't reflect the maximum capacity of the building. So therefore, by definition,
well, we just
everybody on stage has to be deducted from that total.
No, we've just gone through that. That to be deducted. That doesn't apply. That's what I'm saying. It's in red, and we've just made this decision. I said it should have been struck through in the brackets, but the capacities. Bearing in mind, recently we, with the new layout that Sian that we did, it seems to work better, and we got more chairs in. So all I'm saying there is that those capacities need to be pinned down, and I totally agree with the meeting to do that. But as I'm saying, all the others changes are either there in red as new or struck through if they've been deleted in red.
Yes,
but it hasn't been struck
my
through,
point.
No,
I'm
going
to say my point one more time, Gareth. There's no way that you can do that because it's not true document. I could not read anymore because it was telling me lies.
Specifically?
Yeah, specifically.
So I started reading and I got to point 3.3, which is in red.
Yeah, so what about just address that, haven't we? What about?
Well, yes, you can't just address that because when I read what you said was any changes are in red. So when I read the original document, it said exactly the same thing. It wasn't a change. So I can't trust anything else in that document.
Well, that's your opinion. I find that quite offensive myself, but there you go.
Well, I'm very sorry, but that's the decision I took.
3.3 in black.
When you didn't read it till tonight?
I didn't read it. So no, I didn't say tonight. I said today.
Right.
I've had all day reading things.
You've had it a week, right? Okay.
Now 3.3, for example, is at odds with the numbers in 9.2, which is correct. They're both in red.
I mean, if we go back to the bookings taken in 12 months, we've also introduced, to try and prevent the clashes with the dance classes and others, that we won't take recurring bookings more than 2 months in advance.
Yes, I saw that.
So, that's to try and alleviate some of the clashes we've had when dance classes, clash with performances, because they try and do a block booking for 12 months. Because in the past, we said you could do 12 months. So that's a change there. So that's a physical change there. Deciding on the application, we've added bookings from other users. So we've got to say we may not take your booking if it affects other users. We didn't have that in the past. So if you go from 3.3 on, the bulk of it is, as I've said, red and new, struck through red and what's been taken out.
Okay, so why is 3.3 and 9.2 giving different figures then?
Well, there's obviously an error there, isn't there, John? But I think we've gone through those two now. That needs to be changed.
Which is the correct one?
I think it's 160 is what I thought it was.
Well, it isn't. It's 200. According to the fire safety risk assessment, it was 240 seated, which is what
The fire risk assessment is something like 400 people. Well, it's
the
massive.
fire risk assessment wasn't quite as many as that, 340.
Yeah, just
Total.
400. But you know, there's obviously that is something that needs to be changed. But the rest of it is
And the wording in both cases in 3.2, 3 and 9.2, this includes staff, volunteers, supervisors, cast performers, etc.
Yeah, but we just said that
needs to be removed.
Yeah, we just agreed that, and that should be removed. Yes.
So, so the final document needs to be approved with those changes being made, doesn't it?
Well, we bring it back if you want to, as I said, but you know,
we don't have to wait until spring. We can do it fairly quickly, can't we? Go through it, make sure that we're all on the same pinching.
As I said, I think we need to pin down, because I don't think we should go. What I'm trying to explain is that we've got blue chairs up for the 20 club, and we have far more seating than what we've got. So if we need to have it revised, as I said, I'm in totally agreement with we need to get the groups together when Charlie arranges that meeting. She's had to go, unfortunately, and then we can work out what the capacity of the seats are for all users. And I think that's a fundamental thing we've got to do. And then to make it consistent, start buying chairs to match. So we haven't got a mix match. And then we know those red chairs are the total amount. And then that can do, you know, at the moment you could stand with those figures, and then we can move to a different figure. As you say, we can bring that back, John.
We did that in 2016. We set out the hall in exactly those circumstances.
Yeah, but as I said, it was a different layout for the 20 club, and it seemed to, for some reason, we seemed to get more in, which was like an aisle down one side, a central aisle, and a third aisle. And I know the operatic quite like that layout. And we're going to look at
we normally operate, and that's the way we set it out for the HSE fire safety risk assessment. And at that time, we deemed it was 240 seated.
Yeah, well, I think we need to just
We couldn't go to the back of the hall. We had to work it out theoretically, because we haven't got that many chairs.
Yeah, but what I'm saying, John, is obviously the more chairs you can get in is better for the performances, because you get more income. So I think we would need to pin it down once for all and get all matching chairs. And then they're the only ones to be used, because I know others people bring chairs in as well and crowd them in. So, you know, we're going to try to stop that as well. You know, put them down the aisles and everything, and then, you know, it's not my problem, because, you know,
no, that becomes a safety issue then.
Yeah, you know, so if we say red chairs, this is the total you've got on this, so we need to redefine that.
Councillor Palmer.
But I think we need to include, as well as performances and banquets, something to do with fairs that are up there, to give some guidance on that. And also it was 1 or 2, depending on the numbers of supervisors, and whether that is relevant to something like a fair where people are selling stuff, or could be a craft fair, whatever it is. I think it needs to be specific guidance on that.
Yes.
Well, that is in the booking form, isn't it? Which, you know, as you say, you don't book the town hall because it's part of our contribution, but it does specify there in the booking form the various levels. So if it's 100, you have 1 door supervisor, etc., etc. So if you are booking up to 200 is 2 door supervisor, full capacity is 3 door supervisor.
It's more about what's the guidance on numbers of people there as well. And if you get in, if it's open to it could be a church fair. They don't know how many people they're going to have coming in.
Well, they should have something at the door to say once you get to 300 standing, excluding, you know, if you argue with 300 standing and you've got tables and chairs, you could probably knock it back to say 200. So once they got 200 people through the door, they've got to stop people coming in until people go out.
But that guidance isn't in here specifically. It's more about performances and
it's not such a problem.
Eating.
not such a problem with the operatic or the 20 club because we sell tickets and the stubs are collected, so that in the event of a fire, we know how many people are in the building.
But that's again, that would be a whole nother section then in terms and conditions what you must do. So
you're supposed to have a hall manager, aren't you?
But it's implicit that they have to comply with everything, and if they put an event on, they need to realise that they're responsible for that event and the capacities, which is in the guidance there about you are responsible for security, safety, and whatever. I think that's been put into the higher should be aware of the evacuation procedures and all that, because again, my biggest fear is we still not had a fire drill. And I don't know how we're going to crack that egg because
I thought we were going to do one the night of the last town hall TV thing.
Well, we haven't, so it's always a difficult one because who are we going to ask to evacuate in the middle of a performance? Nobody really, are we? So there are things in there that
I'm going to come back again, Gav. We do need to sit down and rewrite this because, again, 7.4G, the hirer must not do, etc., permit things to do. Cook food or have any naked flames in the venue. And then H3, any oil, electrical, gas or other appliances, unless for the purpose of catering and only at the town hall's discretion. So you're saying you can have the things to cook, the appliances to cook things, but you can't cook. It's it's just like.
It's not because we had a hog roast once at the back of the hall. They're not.
Yeah, but it says, "Do you not allowed to cook food or have any naked flames
in the kitchen?"
It doesn't say that. It says cook food or have any naked flames in the venue.
7.2, you said.
7.4G, and then just below it in H, item 3.
I think you've got to read it with the top, haven't you? Without written consent, again. It's about consent, and that we say, yes, we're accepting that you can bring that in, because you're a hog roast and you're registered hog roast. You would be make the necessary, but we don't want you setting up a hog roast in our kitchen.
Okay.
So it's about consent at the top. You're reading things out of context. It's about getting written consent to do these things. Sean's got a hand up, Chairman.
Sure. Sorry, Sean.
If we're extending the use of the town hall to weddings and wedding catering, then there comes a certain point where they may need to be cooking something in the kitchen.
We haven't got a kitchen.
It's all cold buffet.
That's right. Well, they'd have to come in hot because we don't have cooking facilities. We don't have a kitchen in the normal sense of the word. We may call it the kitchen, but it isn't the kitchen.
No, we don't have a water boiler either anymore. Well, we didn't for the fringe, for the comedy.
Yeah, wedding caterers would have to bring it in, Sean.
So what? Right, we're going around in circles a little bit now with this.
We'll call a meeting. We'll have we will call just not a committee meeting. We will call a meeting to go through it page by page.
I think that's a good idea, and then at least we can simplify it, put all the bits that need to be together.
Well, bearing in mind the disputed areas that we've gone over this evening, you can make the amendments to the draft so that we all understand exactly what you're getting at. Because we at the moment can't see it and disagree with it. So that would be the starting point, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. If we resolve, therefore, to bring it back to a task and finish group, just to go
in
through
January.
In January of the working group. Okay.
Yes. Can I suggest it's towards the end of January, because all being well, we're not in lockdown. I'm skiing at the beginning of January.
Okay, that's fine.
But we're not going to be in lockdown.
I'm hoping to get locked down in Austria, John, to be honest with you.
I tell you what, once you've done your paperwork, you won't want to go. Personal experience.
Yeah,
So-
very true.
So can I understand there are two things here? One is a get together to lay out the chairs to ascertain the seated capacity and maximum capacities for this document. And the other part is to amend the document with any possible errors and misunderstandings and go through that. So there are two things that need to be done.
Yeah.
Can I also say that it would be a valuable time for someone like me that's not clear on certain things, and they could be explained. Because if I don't understand it, and you all have been experience of organising events there, but if I'm there as someone hasn't a clue, I can question things and say,
Yeah.
what does this mean? And
It's a fresh pair of eyes, John. Yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
Can I just reiterate, at the risk of boring you all stiff, the HSE risk assessment that we did back in 2016 is still valid, and we did exactly what you're proposing to do. We're setting out the chairs and all the rest of it. Unless the layout is substantially different to that, I mean, it reiterates what we already know, but there's no harm in it. But
I think there's one major change there, is the size of the chairs. Has the footprint of a chair changed from the yellow ones to the red ones?
I've no idea. Have
I
they?
would say they're tighter.
They're smaller, are they?
Yeah, the legs don't splay. They're underneath it.
Oh yeah.
I think it would be worth doing again.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It shouldn't affect the maximum capacity of the building.
No.
Because that's a function of the fire escapes and the floor area and all the rest of it. So that's no problem. Oh yeah, okay. That sounds like a plan.
All right, then we'll do that. That's fine.
Jolly good, folks.
Well,